there, it's Amy Schmidt, your host of the Fearlessly Facing 50 and Beyond podcast. I am so happy that you have chosen to spend time with me. As a reinvention confidence expert, along with a storyteller, I've shared quite a few things along this journey. But what I've found is the most important info to share are stories. Stories of amazing people, ordinary people, extraordinary people, doing things that are going to inspire you to action. So come and join me in this space because you're going to be inspired. Let's get started. It's our time. Hey there, it's Amy, and welcome to this episode of the podcast. So excited you're here with us today. We have a great guest, and you know what? I'm excited for you to meet her. I had the opportunity to be in Dallas and be a guest on the show that she hosts called Texas Today. We were talking all things empty nesting, and we just hit it off. And she is the author of a fabulous book called My Journey Back to God, and it's about her pilgrimage on the El Camino and also in Israel and in India, and it's pretty amazing. And today we're going to really dig deep into that conversation about why she chose to do this, why she chose 98 days in a year to spend on a pilgrimage with her husband to find inner peace. So stay tuned for that conversation. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you to follow me on all the socials. That certainly helps. And you can follow me at Fearlessly Facing 50 on Instagram, Fearlessly Facing 50, 50 is spelled out, on Facebook. There's also a Facebook group you can join, which is fabulous and engaging. You can also find me on LinkedIn. It's kind of new for me. I don't do a lot on LinkedIn, but I'm trying to get there. Baby steps. It's a marathon, not a sprint with me. I'll tell you that. And make sure that you share this with friends. You know, the best way that I can continue to grow and we can continue to grow this community is by sharing. So please share this episode. You know, share the name of the podcast with your friends, with your family. Send a link to my website to friends and family that might really need some encouragement or some inspo. And that's the way we grow. So I would so appreciate that. That's how we build community. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my incredible guest, Kristin Dickerson. Well, welcome to the show today. I'm excited because this interview has been in the works. I think we had to reschedule. We had to reschedule once because Kristin was sick, once because I had something going on. So here we are. And I have with me today the incredible Kristin Dickerson, who I got to meet in Dallas because she's an amazing human that does amazing things that we're going to talk about. But I'm going to talk to you today about your book. And the book is called My Journey Back to God, written while on the pilgrimage across the Camino de Santiago, Israel, and India. Funny side note, I've been to India. It's the only place I've been
neat.
With my daughter. We did a mother-daughter trip.
Oh, special.
But Kristin Dickerson, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here.
I'm so honored. You just kind of dropped it into my mind like, hey, maybe you want to do this one day. And I just kept thinking about it. So I'm really honored that you read the book and that you want to talk about it. Thank you.
I did. I read the book and I think you have an amazing story. And I think a lot of it will resonate with the listeners. You know, I skew mainly female, to be honest, on the demographic. And I think a lot of listeners, myself included, you know, you go through your journey in life and at times you have to stop and recalibrate a bit. Right. And decide if what you're doing is working. And if there's something that is not working, maybe you need to make a change. And some things really come into clarity and focus for you at different times, right?
Yeah. Amen. Exactly. Because for me, I got to a point where life stopped making sense. Like it wasn't working anymore. So I was working. I know.
When you think of you know, a news anchor on the media every day, you know, a spotlight shining on you. And we can talk about that a little bit. That comes with pressure.
Yeah. And career success, I had met every goal. Like I was married to an amazing man. I bought a house slightly above my price range and had a great job, was winning awards and getting promotions. And then I just felt it was kind of like, okay, I should be happy. I should be an abundance of smiles. And I was at my worst, just everything, because I didn't have balance, everything started crumbling. It's like, why am I working so many hours a week to pay for this house that I'm never at because I'm working? And then I don't have time for my husband. So my marriage is a mess. Yeah, it was time to just rip off the Band-Aid and start over.
Time to make a change. On page 11, you said something in one of the last kind of paragraphs of that particular page. You said, you started thinking there's got to be something more to life. I also found meditation, married Peter, quit drinking, got several job promotions, got hired in Dallas, and now I'm continuing a quest for more consistent inner peace.
Yeah.
What did that mean for you? What's inner peace look like to you?
And it's something I'm still working toward now.
Yeah.
Being comfortable in my skin is one thing. The pilgrimage was a lifesaver. And then I came back to work after that. And I started to work too much because I thoroughly enjoy it, and it gets very addictive, and it's really fun. But I had a moment with my coworker, Jessica, and she books everything for me. So I was like, let's just go big, like book me every day. Like we were going to go on this big trip. Like, let's be slammed. She was like, why do you want to be so busy? And the thought that broke my heart that I did not tell her that was in my mind is because once I slow down, I'm going to have to be alone with myself.
Right.
And it's like, oh, why wouldn't I want to be with myself? Like, I should love me. I should feel at peace in my skin. And I still have to like work on that of just like being okay, being still. It's kind of
it's a work in progress, Kristin. I'm that same way. I wrote about it in my book, actually, the fact that there was a point in my life where, and I think we do tend more as women than men to be busy. Although I like to replace that with be productive, because I like the productive word better than busy. But there was a girlfriend of mine who knew me so well. And she said, Amy, you're never home. At that point I was raising 3 little kids. And every time I go past your house, you're never home. Like, you're always busy. What are you doing? And I think I wrote about that. And I left a quote similar to what you just said, that maybe it was because I was afraid of being with myself and I didn't know what it was like to be still. So for people listening, I think that's a real challenge for us.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to step aside and be still.
Yeah. And I found one thing that was dropped into my mind recently, and it keeps coming up, is less doing, more being. It's just less doing, more being. So I found some activities recently, or people have brought activities to me and said, hey, you should do this. You should do this. And after someone tells you the same thing, like strangers, like, you should paint, you should paint, you should paint. And I'm like, okay, fine. And then an artist that was a guest on Texas Today sent me paints. It's like, hey, you mentioned that. People keep telling you should paint. And so we started painting the last couple of weeks of just finally, okay, give me an activity, give my brain an opportunity to be doing something creative, but also be okay just being quiet. So it doesn't have to be sitting in meditation and stillness and silence and really, connecting with yourself. You could also find a creative outlet or way that you're still busy, but just slowing down and pouring into yourself so your body can catch up.
Exactly. Oh, that will resonate with so many. So the first time you heard about the Camino, is it day?
Yeah, like Camino de Santiago. Or people just say Camino.
Was from Peter's grandma.
Yeah. Such a fun woman. To put a visual into your brain. So she is now late 80s, and she always had bright red, fiery hair. And when you walk into a room, it's just the best because she opens her arms and says, darling, and you go over and she hugs you, and you can do no wrong, no matter what anyone has done in their life. She's just like, oh, it's so great. And so she gave Peter Shirley MacLaine's book about her pilgrimage, and one thing led to another. And as soon as the idea came to walk the Camino, because it's known as a place of transformation, it's a 1,000-year-old pilgrimage to the remains of St. James, apostle of Jesus. You carry everything you need on your back, and your life slows down for about 6 weeks that it takes you to walk across the country of Spain. And as soon as that idea was planted, everything started, the universe started saying yes. We'd start working toward it, and it would just be yes, yes, yes. We had
it just
help
was that.
And guidance. We would tell people what we were doing, and they would cry, and I didn't understand their tears at the time, but it was just all these signs kept saying, you're in the flow. It's easy. Just keep going. It's easy. And we ended up getting Shirley MacLaine's cell phone number. I called her. She answered. She answers her own cell phone number.
Amazing.
And told us to take care of your feet. We're a really big hat. and read my book again was her life advice. So just countless signs of saying, go toward this. So we did.
What did it look like when you were preparing? I know you had to get light. I mean, you had to become like a butterfly, right? And get light.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what was that like? What was the weeks before?
The weeks before, I had left my job here at NBC5 in Dallas, Fort Worth on August 2nd. And then it was just kind of organizing our lives. We had sold our home less than a year before that. As everything was coming to a tipping point, we knew we needed to get light.
Yeah.
So we got rid of the stress of the home, which got rid of a roommate who we didn't want to live with us, but was unable to move out. So we got rid of our house. We're living in a small apartment. Then we started getting rid of all of our stuff. We just kept downsizing. We put our car in storage, and we went to a meditation retreat just before in Los Angeles and continued to prepare in that way, mentally and physically, because before we'd just been preparing to walk with weight in our backpacks, but Dallas-Fort Worth is flat for the most part. And so we didn't really prepare to climb the Pyrenees Mountains. And then we were at a retreat in downtown LA, staying on like the 20th floor, and the elevator goes out. And so we got to take the stairs twice a day.
Really? Okay,
so
well,
that even that prepared us, like even a challenge of like, wait a second.
Yeah.
And then we launched, and we planned a 98-day pilgrimage to some of the holiest places in the world. And the Camino was first on there because it's known for transformation. We were at a point in our lives where, as I mentioned, things weren't working. We knew that we needed to use the skills that we had, the skills and experiences that God gave us for something else. So our hope was that we would start walking across Spain, and by the end, we'd figure it out.
Oh. Did you have any fear?
My biggest fear was money. I've been very financially attached to every penny since I was born. Yeah. My mom said I came out of the womb that way. And that was the scariest thing, is realizing that every 2-week paycheck, that I would have to trust in something greater. Mm-hmm. That all these signs from the universe saying, do this, will also take care of me when that income isn't coming in. Right. And it did. Like the money we planned on spending, I think it was about like $35,000 for this 98-day. And we didn't even really touch it. The Camino cost us about $6,000. That's really just for flights. Mm-hmm. When you stay at a place each night, they're called albergues, which is basically a hostel. It might be like $10 or $15. So it's very inexpensive. And after we returned, we were offered a job where I'm currently at. So we were provided for. Yeah, which a miracle in itself, that the show was being created as we were on this pilgrimage.
Halfway through your pilgrimage.
Yeah, halfway through we were camping in the north of Israel, where Jesus once slept, underneath the stars at a kibbutz. And my father had a stroke several days before. So my husband said, hey, check your phone to see if like your family's tried to reach out. And what came through was a text from our general manager, Tom Ellman, saying, hey, we're creating this thing. And the show matched the reasons why I left, because news, it was harder than it had ever been on me. I felt it more. Mm-hmm. The sad stories, the Amber Alerts, they lingered longer. They stayed with me. And I felt like my spirit couldn't carry it anymore. That I couldn't continue to share the worst of humanity when I was being called to share the best. So powerful. And so we said, hey, would you consider it?
Would you consider it? Okay. So I am out there when it comes to like talking about things that are really on my heart and part of my personal journey. That's one reason I started the podcast. And it's another reason to share information that I find is so valuable. So I'm going to ask you this. Wouldn't you love to be able to run, skip, jump, climb a mountain, swing on a trapeze, jump on a trampoline, whatever it is, without a leaky bladder? Okay, I'm putting it out there. I know I have an editor who's a male who edits my podcast, and I'm sure he's like, okay, Amy, you're bringing it again. I'm learning so much about this. I can tell my girlfriend, my wife, my sister, my friends, whatever. But you know what? It's so important to open the dialogue on this because it's an important topic. And urinary stress, urinary incontinence is real, and you are not alone, and I am not alone. So that's why I want to share with you this amazing product that I have been using. I've been using Inovo to combat bladder leaks and strengthen my pelvic floor, which I can't tell you how many times I've pulled to a stoplight and I've heard my OBGYN saying, do your Kegels, Aim, do your Kegels. Well, you never know if you're doing them right. So Inovo's clever technology, it's non-invasive, it's not surgical, it's literally a pair of shorts. You put them on and the technology stimulates the pelvic floor to strengthen the muscles and treats the root cause of bladder leaks. You pull on the shorts and Inovo delivers 180 perfect pelvic floor contractions in 30 minutes. Literally, it's your me time for 30 minutes, 5 days a week for 12 weeks. You can read your emails, you can just have a little me time, you can do your to-do list, whatever it is. It works. It's clinically proven to work. It's non-invasive, safe, and easy to use. And you get results in as little as 4 weeks. So if you are somebody or you know of somebody that is suffering from bladder leaks, let's open the dialogue about it. Let's be transparent. We're women. We've had kids. This is part of it. So you know what? There's a great code. You go to myinovo.com. You use the code AMYK100, AMYK100 for $100 off. It's amazing. Get your starter kit. Let me know how you like it. And you know what? You'll be leak-free just like me. And it's an amazing, empowering, confidence-boosting feeling. Check it out. myinovo.com and use the code AMYK100. $100 off. So let's go to that first day. You get to your starting point of this journey, of this pilgrimage. And just for, I say this all the time. So for listeners, this will resonate because I say it, how many times as women do we pull into something? Let's just say a PTA meeting or some meeting or a church meeting or a committee meeting. And you get there and you're like, what am I doing? I think I need to exit stage left and go to Starbucks.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real.
2 minutes before this podcast started, like, what am I doing? Do I have anything to offer?
Back. Yeah, there's no turning back at this point. You're there. You and Peter are there. You're probably looking at him like, wow, we're in this.
We're done. Yeah. We arrive in Biarritz, France. And I hadn't watched any news for the 3 weeks before that because I left news never to watch again. So I don't know what's happening in the world. So we show up in Biarritz and there's a lot of military and like all the roads are shut down. And we're just like, wow, this is a lot. Yeah. And then we see like a welcome area for the G7 summit. So like the world leaders were going to be arriving the next day. So the whole town is shut down. There's no public transportation. There's no way for us to get from Biarritz to the start of the Camino, which is like a 2-hour drive.
Really?
And then we're just like, huh.
Yeah. Now what?
I didn't plan on this. And my husband, we randomly checked Uber, and coincidentally, a guy was visiting Biarritz from Paris in his like Mercedes wagon and had some time and wanted to get away from his family. So he popped up Uber to offer someone a ride. So we show up to this Camino, to this pilgrimage where we have given away our worldly, earthly belongings to be pilgrims. And we roll in like a brand new black Mercedes to get dropped off. I'm just like, oh, this is actually embarrassing.
Yeah.
So funny. So but yes, we wondered, what have we signed up for? Especially because the first full day of walking is to the top of the Pyrenees Mountains. And we had been training in Dallas, Fort Worth, which was flat. So
yeah, that's a challenge right there.
That's a challenge.
That's a challenge. And bug bites and blisters.
Yeah, so many bug bites that I was swollen. Like I have photos of my hips where if like this is my waist and my hip, it was like, it's like, what has happened to my body?
Yeah.
But so helpful. It was about 2 weeks of walking, and it felt to my mind like I had been looking through a tinted window, and all of a sudden the tint was taken off and my vision was clear again. I did not realize how burned out I was, how physically exhausted, how mentally exhausted, how just keep going, just a little bit more, I have this to-do list. I had no idea that I was just about to be really broken.
Yeah.
And I heard recently just about deep rest and depressed. And sometimes when you are depressed, it is because you need deep rest, because your body is tired of playing this character that you've created for it. And that is definitely where I was. But it took several weeks of like full night's rest, walking in nature, time with myself, and hearing the sound of my own feet to realize, oh, I was really burned out.
Wow. That's incredible. That's really incredible when you think about that. Yeah.
It was helpful. And it's also something that just spending time in nature and just time with yourself and walking and physically moving forward in nature. I mean, that's something we can all do relatively, like no matter where you live, there should be a way where you can find a park or something that even if you can't quit your job and leave everything that you know and walk across a Camino or go on a 3-month-long pilgrimage, but just pouring into yourself more often so you don't need a big wake-up call. You can maintain.
You can maintain. You talk about early in the book, I think it's on, one of the early pages, and I'm going to link this to the episode notes so you can purchase Kristin's book, and it's really great. You talk about somebody named Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was special to you. That was somebody that I remember, I don't know the exact word because I don't have it open, but it was something about she always was positive.
Yeah. So much. And I've had mental clouds, basically. I don't know if it's forever, probably my teens, when everything starts changing and you start questioning yourself all of a sudden.
Right.
I've had just like cloudiness is kind of what it feels like. And I had a morning of that a couple days into the walk. And we walked by a 2-story albergue, and Laura came out on the balcony and she yells, "Good morning," with this beautiful high-pitched British accent. And it just kind of snaps me out of my really dark space that I was in that morning, getting down on myself because I almost lost my passport.
Right.
So mad at myself. Even though we found it, I was still like, oh, you could have really messed up this whole trip.
Yeah.
And I realized that she just continually just kept like pouring this beautiful love into me. And I realized that I really need to be that for myself. I need to be my own cheerleader. I need to not listen to that negative voice of, oh, you should have said this, or you could have done that, or why didn't you? Just like, no, just to fall in love with myself again and to really appreciate myself. One thing she said that still comes to me, which I love, that you can meet someone and cross paths with them a couple times and they can still be in your mind years later. I love that. And one thing she said was like, you haven't been looking back, have you? Look back to see where you've come, like see how far you've come. And I think that can be everything, like looking back at any challenge in your life.
Yes.
How did that challenge or that moment of suck? How was that a blessing? Like, what did you learn from it? Did it pivot your life? And that's been such a gift, being able to look back and like, wow, that really sucked. But you know what? Such and such wouldn't have happened.
Exactly. Exactly. I agree with that 100%. I talk a lot about development of a highlight reel, and that's actually looking back at your past experiences, your stories that you've created, challenges, failures, all of those things, and how they translate. So I love that. I have a few Lauras in my life too.
Oh,
and
yay.
You meet those people, and and all of a sudden what they've said, their energy, their voice reconnects with you in a way when you least expect it. Those unexpected treasures that happen.
Yeah. I love that we can meet pilgrims on the Camino, or we can meet someone at the grocery store who just happens to say something. I feel like if you set the intention of looking for guidance or looking for God, if you set the intention of I am looking, then it shows up. People show up, words show up. As long as you set that intention, going to holy places is always a gift. And that certainly helps, just the energy of being in places where people have prayed for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
That energetically can shift you, but also just setting a daily intention.
Right.
And deciding to look for it.
Yeah. Deciding to look for it. Let's talk about this $1.91. I think
Oh,
that's pretty
yeah.
significant, with your, gosh, you had purchased all this camera equipment, which you
Hmm.
needed to, because you were documenting it. It was high tech stuff. And you looked at a receipt or something and you saw the difference was $1.91. And that actually
Yeah.
translated to scripture.
Yes. And even more of the backstories, I mentioned that my attachment to money.
Yeah.
So I had camera gear that was fine and it would have been fine. But whenever I thought of documenting the best of humanity as a God project, as an offering to God, like, let me use my skills to serve you. Let me show the best instead of what I was doing by showing the negative things. And every time I thought about this project, I thought, I really need to upgrade my gear to shoot in 4K. And the difference was that if I used the camera gear I had, it'd look good on a cell phone, it'd look good on a computer screen.
Mhm.
But I didn't want to be cheap when it came to God. And 4K is movie theater size.
Right. Right.
So I took the money out of savings and my income was ending here at NBC5. And we spent the money, put it on a credit card. And freelance jobs came up kind of out of nowhere. We didn't think about it. Like, I got hired to host a TV show about horses, and we did a veterans video, just like, right, didn't think about it until
Right.
we got to the bank right before we left for the pilgrimage. And my husband was writing out the deposit slip for the checks. And I remembered, how much was that we put on the credit card? Pull up the credit card, and the difference was $1.91. So it's like, it was such a lesson to me that if you feel called to do something,
Mhm.
and you are getting signs that say yes, signs as in it's easy, and that if you continue following your intuition in your heart, that you will be provided for. So I didn't grow up in the church or with a strong relationship with God. So I still Google scripture and synchronicities when they come into my life. So I'm like
Right.
$1.91, because my question was, all right, God, if you can make it that close, why
Yeah.
wasn't it zero? Why wasn't it perfect? Right. So I Googled scripture 191, and what came up was Psalm 91. And that was, he will wrap you in his feathers, and under his wings you'll find refuge, which to me meant that if I keep listening and following my divine intuition, I'll be provided for.
Yeah.
So we were invited to premiere a documentary that we shot on the Camino at a place called Circle Cinema in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I used to work in Tulsa, and we used to promote the Circle. It's a nonprofit community theater. And so they invited us to show our film there. And they said, oh, it's so neat that it's in 4K, because 2 weeks before your premiere, we're getting a brand new projector to finally show movies in 4K. 2 weeks difference.
2 weeks difference.
2 weeks. I was like,
Wow.
I'm so glad I listened, and I'm so glad I wasn't cheap.
Oh, exactly. There you go. So what if I told you could double your confidence in 14 days? Would you be game? I definitely would cannonball into that. So let me introduce you to an incredible course that is being taught by my business partner, Kristin Cofield, the founder of The Culinary Cure, and myself, the founder of Fearlessly Facing 50. 14 lessons taught by us to double your confidence. All you have to do is go to betterthangossip.com and sign up today. If you sign up with 3 friends, you get your course for free. And the investment is basically probably a trip to the grocery store. It's not a huge investment, but it's investment in you. That is the gift you should gift yourself this holiday season. The program seamlessly combines wellness and mindset, so you solve the biggest confidence challenges that we face when building our businesses or just going along on our journeys. We need both mind and body confidence. If this sounds like you, not having enough energy to get everything done, frustrations with body image, poor sleep, inconsistent eating habits, self-doubt, negative thoughts, stress, lack of confidence, this course is for you. It's a proven, powerful online program that brings you videos, call to actions with worksheets and recipes, everything so that you can look and feel happier in your body and in your thoughts. So sign up today. Mind and Body Confidence. Betterthangossip.com. You can find it there. You can find it on my website, fearlesslyfacing50.com. Let's talk about courageous conversations, because I think that's a topic, especially for women. We have to have some of those courageous conversations sometimes. We have to put ourselves out there and extend ourselves at times that are difficult, challenging, uncomfortable. Before you even started this, you were going to walk away from a job that a lot of people would think, are you kidding me? Like, she's got it all. I mean, she's the it. She is it. Why would she do this? And you had to go into your boss and explain this. And that was a tough conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how G-rated your podcast is. However,
it's okay. No,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote about it in the book. So I'm like, okay. So one thing that helped was I was researching one of my last investigative style pieces that we did for Sweeps for news was talking about psilocybin mushrooms and using therapy with psychedelics to get outside of yourself. And from Johns Hopkins, we did a story with them. They've proven research for more than a decade about how it can help people with chronic depression, people facing terminal illnesses.
Yes.
And so my reasoning for myself was, hey, if I'm going to do the story, I should probably get some experience, right? And a lot of things were going wrong I say that loosely because everything ends up right. But my after having marital issues, and then my husband and I came together and worked on it, got counseling, and then had a miscarriage. So I was feeling a lot, and did therapy with psilocybin mushrooms. And I had such a clear experience that God loves me no matter what, no matter if I'm a TV anchor, like he doesn't care what I do for a living. He loves me and he wants me to be happy. And it was so clear. And I was like, okay, done. I had felt called that there was time for a shift, but that made it so easy because it was reminding myself what I know. And I'm not saying you have to do psilocybin to remember what you believe in, but anyone can tap into and try to trust that part of yourself that's really telling you like, hey, you don't have to do something if it no longer aligns with you. So as soon as I came back from shooting the story at Johns Hopkins, I told my boss that I'd be leaving. That was done. He was like, your contract is up in 7 months. Like you can think about it for a couple more months. I'm like, no, I think I'm good.
Yeah. But that's being brave. I did a whole episode on psychedelics actually, because it is very interesting. There's so much going on in that arena right now. But I mean, that was a tough conversation to go into. I'm sure you were feeling nervous about it. Anxious.
Yeah, the hardest conversation, I think, was telling my mom. My mom is my number one cheerleader, and my number one cheerleader in my career has always been the one. She was a cheerleader, but also a hard coach in the form of like, are you asking for enough opportunities? Why aren't you doing that? Like, is there something that you want to do that you're not? Like, she was a big proponent of me fighting for myself and career and opportunities. And so to tell her, hey, all this time that you've poured into me to making sure that I was educated and I had opportunities, I'm going to throw that away and I'm going to go find God.
I'm going to go find God. Wow.
And I think she really thought I was crazy. And so it because she had, I think, my best interest at heart as far as like, are you okay? Like she was legit worried, like, are you mentally stable? Like, are you all right?
As any mom would ask. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
But the biggest tickle of my heart comes from seeing her just joy that it worked out. I think it helped everyone in my family grow their faith because I'm sure everyone kind of thought I was nuts because we're all very like work oriented.
Right.
So to leave work and to pour into yourself on a search for God and finding that inner peace. I think they all thought I was nuts, but they were sweet about it. They're like, you're all right. It's going to be okay. But when the movie came out and the book came out and people have said how helpful it is for every different, like every person's reason for it being helpful is different. I think when something comes from being in the flow of creation and the flow of God, I think that ignites whatever needs to be ignited in whoever's reading it or watching it.
How about your friends? Because we talk about friends a lot. Friends are something that those are transitions too in our life. We go through so many transitions as women. We go through so many reinventions as women. Friendships is one of those things that really it's difficult at times. New friendships evolve, unexpected treasures come up, like Laura in your book, somebody that you look to. I have those people in my life. I look at you as an unexpected treasure that we met in,
Thank you.
in Texas today. And we're sitting there talking about actually empty nesting, ironically. And then, I was so intrigued by you and so interested in you. And you are such a genuine human.
Thank you.
So relatable. But I'm sure I look at you as a friend. But I do think that, what did your friend say when you said, this is what I'm going to do for the next 93 days? This is what I'm doing. Did you have some that really thought you were crazy?
One of my favorite friends at work, who I don't ever see her very much, but she is an incredible investigative journalist. So she's very logical. Yeah. And I told her, I'm like, yeah, we're going to do this 98-day pilgrimage. And we picked 98 days because we gave our birth date information to an astrologer in India. And he said our trip will be blessed as long as we do it in less than 100 days. And she was like, but do you think you want to get a second opinion? No, the astrologer. That's fine. I've never met him. He's in the mountains somewhere.
Love that friend.
But I have another girlfriend, Sheila, who did something just as wild. And she was working in Qatar for a long time, and her job ended. And she was like, oh, I can travel. And so she just traveled throughout Asia and had the most incredible experience. So we reached out to people who also had done something crazy just to confirm that we weren't crazy. So we called Sheila and said, hey, I think we're just going to go adventure. And she was like, yes, it's going to be the best. Yeah. And then I reached out to a former coworker from years and years ago, one of my first jobs, working as a reporter for a show called Good Day Tulsa. And he had told me once, just casually, that he was living in San Francisco and God put it on his heart to pack up his things and get ready to move. And at the time I was not into my faith at all. So I was like, that sounds crazy. Yeah. And so we did. He had his house in boxes, and he waited a year with his things in boxes. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is similar. We are getting called, feeling that call to get ready, get light, be like a butterfly.
Yeah.
And so we called him and we're like, hey, these are the signs we're seeing. The word Rome kept coming up. And he said, yeah. It just kind of helps confirm that hey, it worked out for him. He listened to himself. He listened to that divine call and did it. And it worked out for him. So we reached out to the friends who helped us confirm that we weren't losing our minds to balance out the you might be losing your mind.
You must be crazy. Yeah, yeah. I love it. Let's talk about India briefly. I mentioned at the beginning that I had gone to India. I did a mother-daughter trip. We did a service trip years ago. That was quite an experience. Mm-hmm. Somebody told me before I even went, a good friend said, you will have that in you, that experience of India in you forever. And your senses will be on fire when you come home because you can't process it all when you're there. What was India like for you?
We've been 7 times, my husband, Peter, and I. And the first time was the most significant. Each is a blessing. What I love about India is every time I go, there's always friction. Yeah. There's something, but that stirs up in me and I come back a better person as compared to going on a vacation that's easy.
Yes. I would agree.
The first time I went to India, my husband and I had just found meditation, but I wasn't fully committed. I would read about it while drinking a bottle of wine. And so we went to a silent meditation retreat, and we get there and we're staying at an ashram, which is basically where monks live.
Yes.
And I never changed my name when Peter and I got married. So they didn't think we were married. So I had to stay with women. We couldn't stay together as a couple. My luggage didn't make it. We had done some bad research about, don't look people in the eye, all these things that were just wrong.
Right.
And so I was very unsettled and had the worst case of depression for a solid week. And by the end of that, of being in silence with myself for the first time ever for that amount of time, being away from my husband, being stripped of everything my ego is attached to, my appearance, my job. At the time I was, my picture was on the side of the live trucks. I was known enough in the city I was working at the time, Tulsa, because it's a smaller town, where I would go to the grocery store and people would be nice to me and say hi and say they saw me on TV, that type of thing. So all those things were gone.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that I really just realized, what am I doing with my life? The only thing I have coming into this life is God. And he's the only thing I will have when I leave, when I die. Why am I not giving any time to him? So the things I was giving my time to, my career, what I look like, even my relationship with my husband, those things are not going to last forever. And I was in a Kriya Yoga initiation ceremony where they welcome people into this specific type of meditation technique where you focus the breath in the spinal area and bring the energy up. And for the first time ever, I had an experience of just overwhelming love out of nowhere. I wasn't in the initiation. I was just watching it, sitting on the front row to see what they were all about. And just an abundance of what am I feeling? Like so much love. And as soon as the meditation initiation ended, I speed walked to the holiest place on the property. And that was the former bedroom of an Indian saint, Paramahansa Yogananda. And I just put my face down, on the floor in front of the altar and said, all right, God, I'm yours. Whatever this is what I want. This is it. So that was the first time I went to India. So I was quite hooked.
Yes.
We went almost every year.
7 trips. That's powerful.
Each time it's good. It's the struggle though. Every time I write about it in the book because it's just like, I'm uncomfortable. People are staring at me. It's hot. I've got bug bites. Like every little bit of friction just sparks inside me. And then it's dealt with. It's dealt with.
Oh, thank you for that. I really enjoyed your book. I enjoy this conversation. My Journey Back to God. I'll link it to the episode notes. I just think you're superhuman.
And the feeling's mutual.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you a question that I ask everybody. And that is, Kristin, if you were sitting on the couch and you look over and there you were at 30, what advice would you give her?
Stop drinking.
Stop drinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everything shifted when I stopped drinking. Mm-hmm. And when I was younger, I would, drink to black out, then do drugs so I could drink more. As I got older, I would just drink occasionally, but when I would drink, I would go all in. And so it was more than a couple glasses of wine at night or something. It would, if I'm going to do something, I'm doing it all the way.
Yeah.
And once I gave that up as an offering in exchange for clarity, I was like, all right, God, I have this thing that will be the death of me and will take everything I love from me, take it. And in exchange, show me what to do. I want to hear you. I want your guidance. And as soon as that significant sacrifice was handed off my plate, I felt like my life was finally able to move forward and not take steps back in the meantime. So I would tell her, stop drinking.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for sharing how you have found your inner peace and how we're all a work in progress.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And, to be our advocate sometimes, to be our best advocate and cheer ourselves on when we need it. So thank you. Thank you for the time. I so appreciate it. I hope to see you again in Dallas.
Thank you. Same. You're welcome anytime. You're a great guest and a fantastic interviewer. So thank you.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Okay. So I hope that this episode inspired you, encouraged you, and challenged you. Because when we share our stories, they're inspiring. You know what? It's important for people to connect. Connection is key. People need people. So as you go forward this week or today, be a difference maker, be a change maker, not only in your life, but in somebody else's. Reach out with a text, an email, or a phone call. Connection is key. It builds community and it builds confidence. Go forth and be awesome, and I'll see you soon.